Okay, stats kids. I'm going to move right along to section 9.2, but we're only going to do like the formula part of section 9.2, so pretty short. I mean, the formulas are still pretty long, but this section is talking about means rather than a proportion. So in section 9.1, we did proportions or percentages. But this section is all about means, okay? So we're dealing with X bars and mu's and standard deviation and all that good stuff, okay? So here, the variables are listed out here. Like you have mu1 and then you'll have mu2, which is your population mean for the two different populations. And then X bar, you can't really see the bar, so make that bar a little bit more defined. X bar 1 will be your sample mean, okay? And we'll talk about the difference between those two. Sigma 1 will be your population standard deviation versus S1 is your sample standard deviation. N1 is the sample size of the first, and then N2, and all of these will apply to the second set for population. I know, it's fine. He's okay. All right, go on out. No, go on out. Go on out. He's fine. So then you'll have your twos for your second population, okay? Your test statistic is called T this time, and we're going to use the T chart unless we have like data like N is greater than 30, that type of thing, and we'll use the Z chart again. But for now, we're just going to call it T. And it's kind of similar to the last set of calculations that we did when we had mu1 minus mu2. If we're assuming mu1 equals mu2, for our hypothesis, then mu1 minus mu2 will always be 0. So we can kind of knock that part out of our equation here. And all we have to do is this calculation, okay? Go back in there, and you can't really see these bars over top, but that's X bar 1 and X bar 2. So maybe make those a little bit darker, okay? So we're going to go down here, and I did... we're going to use some of these calculations. We're not going to do the entire hypothesis testing, but we're going to use that data to just find T, and that's all we're going to be doing today, okay? So we're just calculating T, and I went ahead with these two sets of data. The top row is female, the bottom one is male, and we've got, I put these in here, and we're talking about, it's fine, honey, I'll be out there in just a second. Student evaluation scores for teachers taught by male and female professors. So they're trying to figure out whether like students prefer a female professor versus a male professor, etc., right? So they did the average score and the standard deviation. Okay, the average score for females was 3.87 and the average score for males was a 3.99. Hey, okay, bring him up here then. Okay, standard deviation, I went ahead and plugged those in. So write these down on your paper because that's what these two data sets are. Okay. All right, average standard deviation for each one of those. And I went ahead and just said that the ones were the females and the twos were the males just because that's how they went. The females were the top row, the males were the bottom row, okay? Also, we have like N1 and N2, and that's just the number in our sample. And we will need to know those. So I just counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 in the first set. There's 3 more in the bottom set, so that's 15. All right, so calculating T, we're just going to plug stuff into our formula. So we have a top, and we have X bar 1 minus X bar 2, okay? 3.87 minus 3.99, okay? And then the bottom we have a mess. We have a square root of a bunch of stuff. S1 squared, which is 0.56, and we're squaring that all over N1, which is 12, plus we've got S2 squared, which is 0.40 squared over 15, okay? And we're going to type that all in. You can do it in parts if you want to. I went ahead and typed it in ahead of time because all I have is my stupid idiot phone calculator, and so I had to do it like really in parts and stuff, and I got negative 0.63. So type that in yourself and make sure that you get that. So on your homework assignment, you're getting the correct answer for T also. Negative 0.63 is what I got. So check to make sure you got that as well. And that's as far as I'm going today. We're just working on the calculations. But one more thing is that when we're doing the T chart, we have degrees of freedom. But Like we have a data set that's 12 and we have a data set that's 15. So it's like, which degrees of freedom do I go off of? Like this degrees of freedom would be 11, right? And this degrees of freedom would be 14. So it's like, which degrees of freedom do I use? Okay. The degrees of freedom will always be the smaller of the two. So we would go off of 11 degrees of freedom because we never want to assume more accuracy than we have. So when they say degrees of freedom is the smaller of the N1 minus 1 and the N2 minus 2, that's just saying find your degrees of freedom, one less than each one, but go with the smaller one. So we're not going to use 14 when we start to look things up on the chart. Okay. All right. So the sheet that we're going to go off of for your couple homework problems that you have to do is this formula sheet, okay? 4 and 5 I'm going to add to this also because this is calculating error, and that was for 9-1, okay? So see if you can go through and plop all of this stuff. These are really ugly things. See if you can plop them into the error formula and get an answer. Compare with each other, work together. By all means, do all that good stuff, okay? Error for number 5, they have some weird things going on. Like they have P1, P hat 1 is X1 divided by N1. They're just saying, like, if your X is this guy, you're going to divide him by 40, like 34 out of 40 to get your P hat 1. So you have to do a little bit more work to find those, okay? But type those in, see what you get for an error for number 5, okay? And then according to the stuff that we just did, you'll just need to add 6, 7, 8 to that. So you're using this information, they're giving it to you, and you plug it in and see what you get for T. Okay, just plug it in, see how that works. This part right here will end up being 0, like always, okay? Plug it in, compare with each other. That's huge, okay? But write out all your work, type it all in, see what you get. 7 is just asking for the degrees of freedom. So you're just trying to decide if N1 is this and N2 is this, what degrees of freedom do you go off of, okay? And then 8 is another one of those where you're typing stuff in, except they're giving you sigma instead of S, and they're calling it Z instead of T, okay? Because because you do know your standard deviation, like sigma, okay? So that's the only difference, but it's the same formula. So practice typing those in. Those 5 problems, really just 3 from this section, and 4 and 5 are from section 9-1. So you might have to look back at 9-1, but do those 5 problems, see if you can come up with the correct answer, compare with each other to see what you get, and that's it. Tomorrow I'll be back, and then I can answer all the questions, okay?